In this episode of Fish Home Refresh, my camera shy Geophagus Altifrons babies update. Sometimes just a little more light makes all the difference in the world, and one black nasty to rule them all. Several months ago, I bought 10 Geophagus Altifrons. They were all around an inch long or so really tiny, and I stuck them in this 20-gallon long as a grow-out tank. Nothing too fancy, but it turns out they're camera shy of all things. Look at them scatter once they notice my phone pointed at them. Off they go. Every single time. And it's definitely the phone, because that's the only time they're afraid. I can even do a water change, and they're all out having a good time. It's a little frustrating, but I was able to sneak in some footage while they weren't looking. I have to leave them in here and wait for them to grow into a non-meal size so I can add them to San Quentin, the 10-foot American cichlid tank. Those fish are just way too big. They'd eat them all. They're slow growers though, which I knew, but I've been trying to power feed them a good variety of foods to increase their growth rate. 3 times a day is the goal, although it's in my bedroom, so if it's dark when I go to work, I have to rely on my wife to do the first power feeding. They notice the camera again. There they go. Also keeping their water nice and clean and healthy, and they're definitely growing. I thought a few would die, so I bought 10 when I wanted 7, but they're all thriving, so it looks like I might have 10 to add to San Quentin someday. And they get pretty big. It's too bad they're camera shy. Weirdos. When they grow up and hopefully lose their fear of the camera, they'll resemble these guys in my 180-gallon, mostly peaceful American cichlid tank. They're the red-headed Tapajos, or the Geophagus pyrocephalus, if you want to get all fancy about it. I actually love most geos. Their body shape looks cool, but that's nothing compared to their coloration. Usually you'll have a dominant male that'll have more brilliant colors with some longer trailers off their fins, like this guy here. You can find some with even longer trailers though, and I'm expecting the Altifrons to have just that. Check out these guys who aren't even full grown yet. They still have some growing to do. I think I have a lot of beautiful fish, but I don't think any of them compare to my biggest redhead in this tank. Only 5 of them now. I had 7, but 2 of them died, even though they were eating well and showed no signs of bullying or sickness. Really strange. They weren't growing much at all, even though they were acting completely normal. So I'm thinking that it's just they had bad genes. I've come to expect that those fish that refuse to grow at a somewhat normal rate always wind up dead after too long. Fine one day, dead the next. I'm hoping my Altifrons will all keep growing at a similar rate to each other and I don't lose any of them. So far, so good. So I'm doing my weekly water change on Alcatraz, my 8-foot-long African cichlid tank. Any tank in this spot always suffers from glare until it's completely dark out. Using my 1-inch diameter hose in combination with my Cichlid Ultra Zero pump. Super fast. I'm planning on making some changes on this tank soon to make it more beautiful, the scape and the fish, and I'm starting with the light. Both this tank and San Quentin are going to get more light. But first I'm going to take care of some basics that I've been neglecting. Like this heater that isn't even suctioned to the back of the tank anymore. I can wipe the suction cups off as well as the panel and it still just pops away from it, which is severely annoying. Time to try an old trick I know. See if we can fix this thing. Boiling the suction cups can refresh them and might allow them to stick again. Of course, I was trying to push the cups back on the bracket with one hand, holding the camera in the other hand, and totally broke the bracket. But lucky for me, since my house is full of all kinds of extra equipment and parts, I've got another. And just like that, back in business. And it's sticking. Not quite as firmly as I'd like, but good enough. I also have a filter that needs some cleaning. Big time. I've been cleaning them one by one, but not all at once, because you don't want to kill all your beneficial bacteria. By the way, remember that super high-tech filter setup that I showed you last week at Dan Wolf's house? Ah, nice. Well, here's my super high-tech setup. Where is it, you say? Whatever. I've waited too long to clean this bad boy, so I've got some work to do. One thing I liked about Dan's setup is that he doesn't use fine sponge media in his FX6 canister filters, like this one. They just get really clogged up super fast, and then it'll stop working as efficiently and start spewing out microbubbles, which make your tank look ugly. He just uses a single smaller 407 filter for polishing with fine sponges, and cleans it monthly. And that's the way to go. It's so much easier and lighter than these huge canister filters. Everyone knows that chlorine in your tap water will kill your beneficial bacteria. So why am I using it to clean this stuff? Well, it's because I have an established tank with 2 other large filters, loaded with beneficial bacteria, and the tank itself is loaded with it as well. If I kill off a little with this water, it isn't going to be a huge deal. I've done it before, so I know it's true. If it was only a new tank or I had just one filter, I wouldn't use tap water. And might as well clean the impeller since I have the canister emptied. Super filthy. Dirty impellers will eventually stop working, and then you'll have to take the whole thing apart again and clean it, so better to do it now. There we are. Nice and clean and ready to work. Also doesn't hurt to throw some lube on these O-rings to make sure they aren't compromised in any way. Make sure you have food-grade lube. I have a full video on this subject in the upper right corner. Getting those panels cleaned up. They don't get much algae yet, but they do get a white biofilm on them that makes the tank look cloudy. So now to the good part. I like a little light fall off at the ends of my tanks, but Alcatraz only has a 4-foot strip, which just leaves too much darkness at the sides. And San Quentin also has too much light fall off. Can barely see the standing roots at this end, especially on camera. It has a 4-footer and a 2-footer. These are all Fluval Sea Marine 3.0 strips. I like them over the Aqua Sky because they give more control over the settings, but they're pricey. I found this 4-footer on Facebook Marketplace for $150, about half the price. Just what I needed. I'll add it to the other 4-footer on San Quentin and move the 2-footer to Alcatraz. And perfecto. Here's Alcatraz before the switch and after adding more light. And San Quentin before the switch and then after. I think it's much better now, but what do you think? Let me know. I don't have the lights on much, but when they are on, I want the tanks to look amazing. But Alcatraz, it isn't really looking amazing to me lately, especially after seeing Dan's Peacock and Hap tank. So I'm going to be making some changes. I've always said that you don't want too much decor in your Peacock and Hap tank, and that's true. It can cause more aggression than you're going to get. But Dan had a lot more than I would include in my tank, and it's working for him. So guess what? I think I'm going to try a bit more in here. Something bigger on both sides, leaving this rock in the middle. I think it's going to look terrific, and if it causes World War III in here, then I guess I can always go back to the way it was. Time to get nasty. My 6 black nasty cichlids are still absolutely thriving in the 72-gallon Landen rimless tank. And I love this aquarium. It just looks classy to me. Again, I thought some would die off shortly after unboxing them, but they're doing really well. Some a little more than others. Well, one more than the others for sure. This guy is by far the largest little guy in the tank. It has more of a spotted appearance as well, so I'm wondering, is this the one? You know I can only keep one in this tank. As they get bigger, the nasty side will show more and they'll start to murder everyone else. Is this my dominant male? Well, I'm hoping so. I'm only feeding them twice a day. I've heard that they're super sensitive to overfeeding, and many people can't even get them out of the juvie stage before they all die. And not too much protein either. Most of this info I've found is anecdotal. It's really hard to find anything about black nasties from a true known expert on them, so I'm doing the best I can. I feed them some kelp flakes in the morning, and they get some protein in the afternoon. So far, so good. And like I said, maybe I've already found the one black nasty to rule them all. That's all I got. Peace out.